In the quiet neighborhoods of Dodge City, Kansas, lives unfold in ways few can imagine. Behind white picket fences and manicured lawns, some couples search for excitement, pushing the boundaries of traditional relationships. But what happens when desire turns deadly? The story begins with a seemingly ordinary suburban couple, Rachel and Aaron, who had been together for a decade. Beneath the surface of their stable lives was an unconventional arrangement, an open marriage. This mutual agreement allowed both partners to pursue romantic and sexual relationships outside of their marriage, while maintaining their emotional connection. To their friends, this seemed like an edgy but harmless experiment, an attempt to keep their relationship vibrant. What no one anticipated was that this open door would invite chaos, deception, and eventually, death. Rachel, a confident, intelligent woman, thrived in the openness. She enjoyed the freedom and balance the arrangement brought her. Aaron, although less enthusiastic, accepted the terms out of his love for Rachel. He convinced himself that it was a modern, forward-thinking way to sustain their marriage. The couple set strict boundaries to protect their relationship. But boundaries, as they would soon discover, are easier said than enforced. Rachel met Brandon, a charming and charismatic man, through a dating app. Their chemistry was instant. What began as casual soon turned intense, and Rachel found herself emotionally entangled with Brandon. Aaron, meanwhile, found solace in his own relationship with Emily, a gentle, quiet woman who seemed the perfect contrast to Rachel's boldness. Though these relationships started off as distractions, the emotional depth both partners experienced quickly began to erode the trust within their marriage. Rachel's relationship with Brandon grew beyond the physical. She started spending more time with him, ignoring the limits she and Aaron had initially set. Unbeknownst to Rachel, Brandon was not the man he appeared to be. His history was riddled with manipulations, violent outbursts, and a string of broken relationships. He had a dark side that he kept carefully concealed, until it was too late for Rachel to escape. Aaron, despite having his own relationship with Emily, began to notice changes in Rachel's behavior. She was more distant, less present in their home. The open marriage, once their shared secret to happiness, had become a wedge driving them apart. Aaron's jealousy began to fester, and he started tracking Rachel's whereabouts and monitoring her phone. Simultaneously, Brandon's behavior became increasingly possessive and erratic. He didn't want to share Rachel anymore, and started pressuring her to leave Aaron. Torn between her marriage and her growing attachment to Brandon, Rachel found herself trapped in a web of lies and deceit. Brandon's threats became more explicit, and Rachel's sense of security began to crumble. One fateful night, Aaron confronted Rachel about her relationship with Brandon, fueled by jealousy, anger, and the realization that his marriage was falling apart. The argument escalated beyond their usual disagreements. In a moment of desperation, Rachel admitted that she had fallen in love with Brandon. The next day, Aaron contacted Emily, who had always been supportive of their arrangement. But Emily, too, had grown uneasy. She had fallen for Aaron and was deeply disturbed by the emotional toll the situation had taken on him. Emily, in a bid to protect Aaron, began to urge him to cut ties with Rachel completely. This created a dangerous dynamic. Feeling betrayed by both his wife and his new lover, Aaron's mental state began to unravel. At the same time, Brandon's paranoia reached new heights. He was convinced that Aaron was a threat and needed to be eliminated. In a violent confrontation, Brandon cornered Rachel one evening, demanding that she leave Aaron for good. Rachel, terrified and confused, tried to calm him down, but his anger was beyond control. In a fit of rage, Brandon assaulted Rachel, unintentionally killing her. Panicking, he staged the scene to make it look like a burglary gone wrong. But things were about to spiral out of control in ways Brandon never imagined. Aaron was devastated by Rachel's death, but a part of him couldn't let go of the suspicion that Brandon was responsible. His grief quickly turned to vengeance, and he was determined to uncover the truth. No matter the cost, Aaron turned to Emily for support. Little did he know that Emily had her own motives. She saw Rachel's death as an opportunity to solidify her relationship with Aaron. Slowly, Emily began to manipulate Aaron, feeding his suspicions about Brandon and pushing him towards retribution. While Aaron struggled with his grief, Emily carefully orchestrated the next move. She planted subtle suggestions that Brandon was not only responsible for Rachel's death, but might also pose a danger to Aaron. Her plan was simple: drive Aaron into a confrontation with Brandon that would lead to violence. Violence that Emily could control and ultimately benefit from. The tension between Aaron and Brandon reached its peak. Aaron, fueled by Emily's manipulations and his own thirst for justice, confronted Brandon late one night. The confrontation quickly escalated, turning into a deadly struggle. Aaron, overcome by rage, killed Brandon in self-defense. But as the dust settled, Aaron realized too late that he had been playing into Emily's hands all along. In the aftermath of Brandon's death, the police investigation began to uncover the twisted web of relationships, lies, and manipulations. Aaron was arrested for Brandon's murder, and Emily's involvement began to come to light. As the investigation continued, detectives began piecing together the true story behind the murders. They discovered Emily's manipulations, Brandon's violent past, and the toxic dynamics of the couple's open marriage. Aaron, now facing charges for Brandon's death, realized that his entire life had been controlled and manipulated by the very people he trusted most. Emily, sensing the walls closing in, attempted to flee, but before she could escape, she was arrested and charged with conspiracy to commit murder. Her plan to control Aaron had ultimately failed, leaving a trail of destruction in its wake. The trial became a media sensation, with every detail of the couple's open marriage and the subsequent murders being splashed across headlines. Aaron, despite acting in self-defense, was sentenced to prison for manslaughter. Emily, however, faced a much harsher punishment. Her role in orchestrating the entire sequence of events led to a conviction of second-degree murder and a life sentence. The open marriage, which had begun as an experiment in modern relationships, had ended in tragedy. 2 people were dead, and the survivors were left to pick up the pieces of their shattered lives. In the aftermath of the trial, Aaron reflected on the choices that had led him to this point. His once perfect life had been destroyed by jealousy, manipulation, and violence. He realized that the open marriage, which they had thought would bring freedom, had instead opened a Pandora's box of emotions and insecurities that none of them were prepared to handle. The tragedy served as a cautionary tale for others who might be tempted to experiment with the boundaries of their relationships. What starts as an innocent exploration of love and desire can quickly spiral into something far more dangerous when emotions, jealousy, and control come into play.